Welcome to Nice and Blunt. My name is Adam Riancho, and it's week one, and it's time for quarterback, tight end, and defensive rankings. We're going to go through all three positions. Let's go. All right, we kick off at the quarterback position, and in week one, my number one is Lamar Jackson versus Houston. That rushing upside really going to be a factor this week. He's fully healthy, his roster is fully healthy, and he has some new weapons that he's going to show off. The Texans cannot stop the run. They've had a league worst defense in that category for pretty much the last 3 years counting, and I don't see that changing very much. So Lamar going to light it up, not just through the air, but definitely on the ground. Number two, though, I got Patrick Mahomes versus Detroit, and there is one tentative factor here, and it's Travis Kelce, who is technically questionable for Thursday night's game, and I think he'll be fine, but he is limited leading up to that point. Some news that came in yesterday on Tuesday, and hopefully he's fine. If he doesn't play, though, if Travis Kelce's not available, then Mahomes is probably going to move down this list before kickoff. But I'm still going to start him no matter what. He's just going to have to lean on the receivers even more. But against Detroit, not a defense that scares you in the slightest. You're not benching Patrick Mahomes. I expect a shootout on Thursday Night Football to kick off the season. But number three, we're going with Josh Allen at the Jets on Monday Night Football, the last game of the week. And Allen is always legit, always top five pretty much, and he's fully healthy, so expect him to run the ball as well. The Jets defense is a little concerning, but I'm not worried about it. I think the Bills will win, and I think Josh Allen will be just fine. You drafted him really high. You're not benching him if you got him. But same applies for Jalen Hurts, who I have at number 4. Maybe a slightly difficult matchup against the Patriots. You know Belichick's defense will be on point, but I don't think the double team on A.J. Brown is going to limit him too much. Either he gets the ball to Devontae Smith, or I think Dallas Goedert is really going to pay off this week, get a lot of touches, probably score a touchdown, and Jalen Hurts will also get it done with his legs. So those are the top 4, pretty much the 4 that you drafted to start off your draft, and if you got them, you're definitely firing them up. But at number 5, I have Trevor Lawrence of the Jaguars at the Colts. I think this is going to be a very interesting game for Calvin Ridley, and you know Lawrence is going to get this new weapon confident. I think Ridley is going to have a very good game. Lawrence is probably going to tear up this Colts defense, who no longer has Stephon Gilmore. Not really a defense that scares you anymore, and the Jaguars have given the Colts a very tough time. Over the last few years, they usually beat the Colts pretty comfortably. So I will take Lawrence. I think he's going to go over 300 yards and throw for 3 passing touchdowns, maybe 1 interception, but wouldn't shock me if he has a clean stat sheet in that regard on Sunday. So those are my top 5. Lawrence at number 5 is probably the only one that is a bit of a shock. Normally not ranked as such. But at number 6, I got Justin Fields versus Green Bay, and I did pick the Bears to win. I think Fields is going to have a very good start to the season. Maybe he doesn't rush for like a 60-yard touchdown, but he will get it done with his legs. That's definitely going to be a contributing factor. And even though Jair Alexander is on DJ Moore, I'm not too worried about it. I think the upside with Fields definitely worth leaning into, and I got him at number 6. Because he could put up 35 fantasy points and we wouldn't be shocked. So if you drafted him, stick with him. You're not going to bench him, that is for sure. Number 7, I got Justin Herbert versus Miami. At home, it's not a huge advantage, but the Kellen Moore offense is going to be unleashed. Mike Williams is healthy, so is Keenan Allen, and we'll see if Quentin Johnston and Josh Palmer can also get in the mix. You know Austin Eckler is going to contribute in the passing game too. So I'm definitely starting Herbert coming off of that contract extension. I think he's going to have an excellent game. And with no Jalen Ramsey, I don't worry about that defense too much, although the defensive coordinator is definitely an upgrade moving on to Vic Fangio this season. So Herbert in my lineup for sure. At number 7, I don't think you're benching him if you drafted him. But number 8, I got Joe Burrow at Cleveland. I expect a slightly slow start to the season, kind of like last year because he's coming off that calf strain and he hasn't practiced too much over the last month. But Burrow's still going to get it going. I think the first half might be a little dicey, but in the second half, they will be in catch-up mode. I think Jamar Chase and T. Higgins definitely going to tear up that defense in the second half. I did pick the Browns to win, though, so that's one of the reasons why I have Burrow a little bit lower than normal. Here at number 8, though, he's still top 10. If you got him, I doubt you have a backup that's better, and I think you're starting him no matter what. But number 9, I got Jared Goff at the Chiefs, and this defense doesn't scare me too much. I see a big shootout. I did pick the Chiefs to win, but I think Goff is going to have an excellent game, get the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown like clockwork, and Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a heavy contributor in the passing game. I think they want to make that pick look good at number 12 overall, so I see a passing touchdown for Jahmyr Gibbs in this matchup. I think Goff will go over 250 at least, could crack 300, and he'll throw for at least 2 touchdowns as well. I think he's going to be very, very solid, and he threw very few picks to close last season. I think he could continue that track record and have a clean stat sheet in that regard again this week. So I'm starting Jared Goff. I got him number 9, and top 10 is definitely one of the best streaming options you could have. So if you drafted Jared Goff, I think he's going to start off very, very well in week 1. But number 10, I'm going with Geno Smith versus the Rams. I see a bit of a blowout for the Seahawks against the Rams. And even if Cooper Kupp is available, that doesn't really matter. The Seahawks are going to put up a bunch of points on their division rival. So he should be good. If JSN is unavailable, as we're expecting, that's not a huge downgrade. There's no more Jalen Ramsey, and DK Metcalf should be unleashed, should be just fine. So Geno, with some rushing upside, I have at number 10. I trust his floor with confidence. But at number 11, now we are in the low end of the starting tier, but a very consistent option, a guy you're going to see around 11 inside the top 12 pretty much every single week, is Kirk Cousins versus Tampa Bay. They might lean on Alexander Mattison just a little bit to see what kind of workload he can really handle, given we have not seen him perform as the number 1 running back too consistently in the past. But we got Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison at receiver. I think Cousins is going to light it up, and the Bucs won't be too competitive. I think they're going to dominate time of possession in Minnesota. So I see Cousins having a good game here. He's fully healthy, and his ribs should be okay. We saw that documentary. He's not banged up to start the season, and that's benefiting him tremendously. So I trust Kirk Cousins. At the very least, he is a very consistent, very safe floor play. And in those 12-team formats, definitely going to start him. But the last guy I'm starting in a 12-team setting will be Tua Tagovailoa at the Chargers. Not the best matchup. It is a difficult secondary after all, and the pass rush is also very difficult to handle as well. But Tua should be okay. He's got some good weapons. Tyreek Hill should figure things out. Waddle can always score from anywhere on the field. And even though he was kind of exposed against this defense last season, I think he'll start off pretty hot. Mike McDaniel will have a very good game plan dialed up for this one. So maybe they don't win. That's not what I expected. I did pick the Chargers to win, but Tua in the second half should be in catch-up mode, should throw a lot of passes, and should have a decent game when it's all said and done. But I do expect him to probably turn it over at least once. But Daniel Jones, I got at number 13 versus Dallas. I picked the Giants to win this game, and he offers that rushing upside with Waller fully healthy, making his debut for the Giants. I definitely think they're going to showcase their new weapons. So I see multiple passing touchdowns for Daniel Jones and maybe like 40, 50 rushing yards. He should have a very productive game, but probably turns it over at least once, if not twice, against a difficult Cowboys defense. So now I'm starting to consider benching these players only in the deeper formats. Am I like dying to do it? We're definitely in streaming territory. But I know many of you play in those 2 quarterback leagues, those super flex formats. So I will go 25 quarterbacks deep for these rankings. But at number 14, in the very same game as Daniel Jones, I got Dak Prescott, number 14, at the Giants. I also expect some turnovers for him. He threw some picks in training camp that didn't look too good, and I have very little confidence in the Mike McCarthy offense. But this matchup, this rivalry, usually is kind of high scoring. I think he'll be fine. And Pollard is the RB1, and Pollard always contributes via the air as well, can catch some passes and always break it to the house. So Prescott should be okay, but given I chose the Giants to win, that's why I'm favoring Daniel Jones one spot higher than Prescott. But they're both inside my top 15. You could do a lot worse. The floor will be solid in this Sunday night matchup. But at number 15, I got Deshaun Watson versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and I did pick the Browns to win, but I think it's going to be more on the back of Nick Chubb, so that's why Watson is only coming in at number 15. Maybe he's still a little rusty, but he has a chip on his shoulder. He has something to prove, and I think he will be pretty effective against kind of a slight downgrade of a defense in the Bengals this season. So he should be okay. Maybe I'm too low on him, but we haven't fully seen it. Last year, I'm willing to throw all those games out because he didn't have a ton of real practice time heading into week 12 when he made his debut. And it's going to be interesting to see for sure. I might be wrong on him, but this is around where I ranked him entering the season, and I'm going to stick with him right in the middle of the pack around QB 15. But number 16, I got Derek Carr versus Tennessee, who has a major chip on his shoulder after being released by the Raiders. I think he's going to start off red hot. He also has an excellent matchup. If the Titans have not improved their passing defense from last year, then this is the worst secondary in the league. They gave up 275 passing yards per game on average. So Carr's going to light it up. He's got Chris Olave to throw to, who's going to have an excellent game. And Michael Thomas is healthy. If it's like last year's beginning of the season, Michael Thomas should contribute in the red zone as well. So Carr going to throw for at least 2 touchdowns in my opinion, but probably lean on Jamal Williams a little bit as well. So he's fine, pretty solid floor. I think he'll start to trickle down these rankings as the season rolls on, as some of his adrenaline starts to wear off. He'll prove himself worthy, definitely win some early games, but I think they'll start to fade as the season progresses. But number 16 this week definitely could do worse than Derek Carr. Number 17, though, I got Aaron Rodgers versus Buffalo making his regular season Jets debut. The Buffalo defense, definitely nothing to scoff at. Quite a difficult matchup here, but there is no Von Miller, so that does help. The offensive line for the Jets is very suspect, but Tre'Davious White could lock up Garrett Wilson a decent amount, and it's not like Lazard is fully healthy right now. They don't have Corey Davis anymore either. He retired, so maybe Mecole Hardman needs to step up. Maybe they just lean on Dalvin Cook a little bit extra as Breece Hall starts to come back. He's not completely healthy just yet. It seems like they want to be kind of tentative with him. So the Jets offense, I think, will struggle a little bit early in the season. They'll find their footing soon enough, but in week 1, I would rather keep Rodgers on the bench at number 17 here. Only in those 2 QB settings am I willing to light him up. But Anthony Richardson, I have at number 18. Kind of want to wait and see with him, but there is some elite upside if he can hit in the run game. However, it's a rookie making his debut against a division rival. I expect several turnovers for Anthony Richardson. So that could be a big bummer. There's a lot of risk here, so be careful starting him. I would rather wait and see, but there's definitely some tremendous upside if he can rush in 2 touchdowns on the ground and put up like 60, 70 yards as well. That's definitely going to offer a solid floor at the very least. So he's really interesting. I'm very curious to see what Richardson can do this year. But in week 1, I'm going to keep him on the bench. We'll see what happens moving forward. But number 19, I got Russell Wilson versus Las Vegas, and having no Jerry Jeudy is definitely a bummer for this Broncos offense. Gonna be tough to get it going, but maybe Marvin Mims can have a breakout rookie debut. Maybe Cortland Sutton will have a really good game. Maybe Greg Dulcich will contribute heavily, but I see them leaning a little bit more on Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams, and I did pick the Raiders to win this game. However, it is a good matchup. The Raiders do not have a secondary that scares you, so maybe I'm too low on Wilson, not giving him enough credit. But without Jerry Jeudy, the clear number 1 weapon for this offense, it's not going to be ideal. Could be a rough start for Russell Wilson. So I'm going to hold off on starting him too. I kind of want to see this Sean Payton offense fully healthy before I really judge Russell Wilson. So keep him on the bench, but in that 2 QB setting, I guess fire him up. He is inside the top 20 for me. You could do worse. But number 20, I got Matthew Stafford at Seattle. And if Cooper Kupp indeed does not suit up, I will be lowering him. That is definitely a downgrade. And the Seahawks defense is somewhat legit. So I could definitely see some turnovers here for Stafford. He had some interception issues last season, and he's a bit boom bust. But there's always some garbage time available, at least to be expected for the Rams this season. I don't see them being super competitive in the first half. And in the second half, most defenses will start to kind of ease up and just let them kill the clock, as they have a 2+ score advantage most of the time. That's what we should expect for the Rams this year. But he should be usable in those Superflex leagues. You could do a lot worse than Stafford. But now we're definitely in more bench territory. Only in the deeper formats are you considering these guys. But at number 21, I got Kenny Pickett versus San Francisco. Should be interesting for sure. I picked the Steelers to win, but the Niners defense is very difficult. Pickett's going to have to get it done with his legs to really offer some real upside. So expect some turnovers, but he should be solid. Nothing impressive, though. Nothing that really moves the needle. At this point, you're only getting like 10, 12 fantasy points, and at quarterback, that's not enough. But number 22, I got Jimmy Garropolo. Kind of want to see what this Vegas offense can do. But at Denver, tough matchup. I did pick this team to win, but I think it's going to be more on the back of Josh Jacobs, and it'll be interesting to see what Garropolo can do. So going to hold off on him in my lineup. I would much rather wait and see with him. But same goes for Ryan Tannehill. He does get DeAndre Hopkins, so that's helpful. He has a big chip on his shoulder, wants to keep his job. However, the Saints defense is elite in the secondary, and I think that's a big downgrade overall. So no thank you with Tannehill, and no thank you with Sam Howell. I'm really interested to see what Sam Howell can do, because I might not have given him enough credit up to this point. He is rather mobile, so that might be a bit of a cheat code in fantasy, but I don't really trust him. Especially in week 1 here, like we only have one game of sample size to go off of. I don't trust it. Terry McLaurin dealing with that turf toe injury as well. I don't want to press my luck, even in a relatively okay matchup against the Cardinals. But at number 25, the last player I'm going to rank here is Brock Purdy at Pittsburgh, and I see a bit of a debacle for the Niners in their week 1 game, because Purdy is coming off elbow surgery. I think he's going to be rather rusty, and the Steelers defense is elite, so expect some turnovers, expect some sacks. I think Purdy will have a rough time this week. But just to speed through my top 32, I got Love at 26, Mac Jones 27, Bryce Young 28, Desmond Ridder 29, Baker Mayfield 30, Josh Dobbs at 31, and CJ Stroud at 32. I'm not starting any of them. I have low confidence until I've seen them prove something this season. But let's move on to tight end, where number 1 could possibly miss this game. He's listed as questionable. I'm not expecting that to happen. I think Kelce's going to be perfectly fine. But there is a little bit of injury concern at the time that I am recording this on Tuesday evening. And he should be okay. He should suit up. But if worst case scenario occurs and he doesn't play, I will let you know. I will give you a start-sit video for Thursday Night Football leading into that matchup. But if he starts, you drafted him really high, you're not going to bench Travis Kelce unless he's unavailable. So let's hope for the best. It should be okay, but that is slightly concerning to start the season with a bit of a knee injury. But number 2, I have Darren Waller versus Dallas. I don't think anyone can cover him, and he's fully healthy. I think they're going to showcase this new weapon of theirs in New York, and I see him getting a touchdown for sure. I see a lot of targets, probably close to like 100 yards receiving in his debut. I really think Darren Waller is going to have an excellent game against the Cowboys. I think he's going to be Daniel Jones' clear, by far and away, favorite target. Let's hope he stays healthy, because if he does, I truly believe that Waller could finish as a top 3, top 2 tight end at the end of the season if he can keep it together. That's the key. Waller does carry some injury risk at the age of 30. Long term, I'm a little worried about it, but in week 1, I am trusting him. I'm definitely firing him up. I think he's going to have an elite game at the tight end position. But number 3, I got Mark Andrews versus Houston, who will return as the number 1 target for Lamar Jackson. While there are some new weapons alongside him, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Andrews is fine in the end zone, and I think he's going to return to top 5 status at the position. He had some bad games to close last season without Lamar, and I think Jackson is going to get him back involved, really help those fantasy numbers, given the quarterback situation is who it should be. So I trust him for sure. Definitely starting Mark Andrews. You drafted him high. You're not going to bench him. You're also not going to bench TJ Hawkinson versus Tampa Bay. I got him at number 4, and I definitely see a touchdown for him. I think he's going to have a very good game. They gave him a contract extension recently, and he's a big part of this offense. He was one of Kirk Cousins' go-to options last year to close out the season. He was getting double-digit targets a game, but the touchdowns weren't really hitting. So I think this week they're going to get him in the end zone, get him happy and confident to move through the rest of the season. But number 5, I got Dallas Goedert at New England, and I'm very confident in him this week because I do think A.J. Brown gets a bit of a downgrade with the Belichick double-team treatment, and maybe Devontae Smith also has slightly tough sledding against the number 1 corner. That's usually the game plan. The number 1 cornerback for Belichick is on the number 2 receiver, and then the number 1 receiver gets double covered most of the time. So Goedert going to be a very big part of this game plan, a lot of targets for him, and I do expect a touchdown for Dallas Goedert. But at number 6, I got George Kittle at Pittsburgh. Hard to bench him. If you drafted him, he has a ton of upside, but I am a little bit worried about this matchup. I think the Steelers are going to make it very tough for Brock Purdy, but Kittle was Purdy's clear favorite target in the red zone. He scored 7 touchdowns in his last 4 games with Purdy last season. So Kittle probably going to find the end zone, probably bail you out, but I'm a little bit worried that the floor is not there if that touchdown does not hit. Could be a rough game for the Niners. That's what I'm projecting. But you're still starting Kittle. He's definitely top 10. You drafted him pretty high. But Kyle Pitts, I have at number 7 versus Carolina, and I don't love the matchup for Drake London against J.C. Horn. So I think in terms of the passing game, Pitts is probably going to see the most targets of any Falcon receiver in this matchup. So I think he'll be good from a floor perspective. I do think he will put up a solid stat line. Probably won't score a touchdown, though. That's probably going to be the downside to having Kyle Pitts. That has not been his forte while he's been in the league, and hopefully he can change that. Hopefully he can turn it around. But I see Bijan Robinson kind of stealing the show in this one, so we'll see what happens. But I am starting Pitts. If I have him, we're going to start off the year optimistic and change our perspective as the weeks go on, if we need to. But at number 8, I have Pat Freiermuth, who I think could be the best Pittsburgh Steeler fantasy option this week. I do see some high volume for him, and if he does score a touchdown, he'll probably outscore not only Pitts, but Kittle as well. But the upside typically isn't as high for Freiermuth. I think the floor is there, though, with confidence, and I think he's going to be one of Pickett's favorite targets as we progress through the season. Freiermuth is a sure bet, in my opinion. But number 9, I got David Njoku, so this is kind of mirroring my pre-draft rankings at the position. I had Njoku at 9, right behind Freiermuth as well, and I could definitely see a touchdown for him, but he is a little bit boom-bust, a little more touchdown-dependent in general. It's kind of the debut for Deshaun Watson, and they didn't play a ton together. Their chemistry was a bit off last season. But I do have him top 10. If you got him, I think you're starting Njoku. He's probably going to score plenty of touchdowns this season. But number 10, I got Evan Engram at Indianapolis. I think this is more of a Calvin Ridley showcase type of game, but Engram can always flash some upside. We saw it last year. There were some elite games for him, but the volume is probably going to come down this season. He's still really solid, definitely a heavy contributor, and I think he'll have a better game than Christian Kirk if I was ranking them straight up. That's my gut. But number 11 is where we enter a little bit more streaming territory. Not as high of a ceiling, but I do think the volume for Tyler Higbee at Seattle gonna be very, very much locked in. Probably won't score a touchdown. That's usually not what he offers you, but if Cooper Kupp is unavailable or even just limited in the slightest on any type of snap count, then Higbee is going to be the number one target for Matthew Stafford. Could see double digits even if Cooper Kupp is fully active, and I definitely trust the floor with Higbee. He's going to be a volume monster to start the season and very, very valuable in full PPR leagues. But I don't think he'll find the end zone. That's probably not what you should expect. So that's why I only have him at number 11. I think the upside is a little bit capped. It would shock me if he finished top 5, but if he doesn't finish top 15, I would be rather shocked as well with Higbee. So here at number 11, I think you can trust him. I think he's very safe. Number 12, I got Sam LaPorta at the Chiefs, and I see a bit of a shootout here on Thursday Night Football. I think LaPorta going to need to contribute, especially early on with no Jameson Williams, who is suspended, and Jared Goff is going to see what this rookie tight end can do. Out of Iowa, he should probably fit into the scheme that they had with TJ Hawkinson, also former Iowa tight end. So he's very interesting. I think he does offer some value. I'm probably not going to rank him as high moving forward, but I love the matchup. I see a lot of catch-up mode, a lot of pass-heavy game script for the Lions, and I think LaPorta will be solid, will be usable in most formats. But number 13 is where it starts to get really dicey. Depending on your format, you might not be considering him at all. But I think Juwan Johnson could definitely get in the end zone versus Tennessee. It's a good matchup. The Titans give up a lot of passing yards, and Juwan Johnson, one of the favorites last season in the red zone. So he's a really sneaky option. He could really have some high upside, but it's still the first game with Derek Carr in this offense. It's hard to say with like true confidence that we know exactly what to expect from Juwan Johnson. So good luck at this point. I think you're going to need it, but anyone can score a touchdown. Anyone can have a good game, and if anyone's going to do it, wouldn't be shocked to see Juwan Johnson get in the end zone. But Greg Dulcich definitely going to get some extra work with no Jerry Jeudy, so he's a decent floor option versus Las Vegas. But his stats were actually better last season when both Jeudy and Sutton were both healthy rather than when one of them missed time. You would think he'd get more targets and be more efficient. That wasn't exactly the case. So Dulcich going to be interesting to monitor, but should see some decent volume. I think you could do worse. That is for sure. But number 15, it's the Buffalo tight end, Dawson Knox. And I think early in the season, I think his chemistry that's established with Josh Allen might favor him a little bit over Kincaid. I think Kincaid will definitely contribute, definitely get going sooner rather than later. But in week 1, I prefer Dawson Knox. I think if one of these tight ends is getting in the end zone, it would be Knox, and that's really what you're chasing at this point in the rankings. But same goes for Cole Kmet, could definitely score a touchdown. Hard to really know what to expect with the Bears offense, though. It could go to anyone, and it's a little bit difficult to fully pin down who will be the most valuable option in this offense. So good luck here. Gonna need it. But number 17, I'm definitely benching these tight ends. You're really gonna need a lot of luck with Dalton Schultz. I think C.J. Stroud is going to have a terrible debut against Baltimore, and it's going to be rough sledding for that offense. So need a touchdown to bail you out. That is for sure. Gerald Everett probably going to take a back seat while Keenan Allen is fully healthy. Same with Mike Williams. I think they're going to have an excellent start to the season, and Everett is extremely touchdown dependent. Don't see a ton of volume for him in this matchup. But Dalton Kincaid at the Jets, I think it will be a mediocre debut. Nothing like extravagant, nothing super special, but he probably won't be atrocious. He just needs that touchdown, and I think if it's going to a tight end here, it's going to Knox. But number 20, I got Hayden Hurst at Atlanta, and I really want to wait and see before I start a Carolina Panther other than Miles Sanders. However, reports have indicated that Hurst may be Bryce Young's favorite target, especially in the red zone, and that would make sense. The Frank Reich offenses usually target the tight end in the end zone, and he could be very sneaky this season, very valuable. So keep him on the watch list, but don't start him this week. I want to see it before I trust it. Same goes with the rest of these tight ends. I'm not starting them, but Zach Ertz might be spotlit for a possible trade soon, so that could be interesting. Okonkwo, hard to fully trust. We'll see what happens in Tennessee with Hopkins in the mix. And then I can't say I know what Jordan Love is going to be able to do this season. So Musgrave going to be on the field a ton, but hard to trust. Same with Jake Ferguson in Dallas. Could have some value, but I want to see it in a regular season game before I believe it. And then Hunter Henry could get some work, could be very valuable, but against Philly with Mac Jones, good fucking luck. So those are my tight end rankings. Let's finish this off with the defensive rankings. And at number 1, I'm going with the Ravens defense versus Houston. I had Lamar at number 1 at the quarterback position, and the Ravens defense definitely going to tear up the Texans offense. They're going to struggle tremendously in C.J. Stroud's rookie debut. So I'm definitely starting them. I think Dameon Pierce going to have a rough time as well. And the Ravens defense are a must start in week 1. They also have some good matchups coming up as well. Hopefully you drafted them and are going to start off the season with a lot of points at defense. But number 2, I'm going to take a shot on the Commanders versus Arizona. Why not? I mean, no one's expecting anything from Arizona. They're going up against Josh Dobbs, and I've ranked him at the bottom of my quarterback rankings as well. The Commanders do have some talent on defense, so they should be solid. I got them at number 2, but they're more of a streamer. Don't expect to use them consistently the rest of the season. But number 3, I'm going with the Eagles defense at New England. I see a low-scoring, very close affair here. I wouldn't be shocked if they caught multiple interceptions, maybe took one to the house, and the special teams unit going to contribute as well. So the Eagles, with all that talent, especially what they added in the first round of the draft, and Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith from Georgia, that defensive line is elite. So definitely starting them. They're top 5. But number 4, I'm going with my gut. I'm going with the Steelers versus San Francisco. I know the Niners are a tough matchup on paper, but I think Purdy's going to struggle in his first game after elbow surgery, and TJ Watt absolutely going to light him up. Plenty of sacks in this one. So I like the Steelers at number 4. Number 5, also kind of a weird gut call, but I'm going with the Broncos. I think they could definitely contribute. I see a low-scoring game as well. And against Las Vegas, well, I did pick the Raiders to win. Maybe this is a bad call, but the Broncos defense should show up. They were really good last season, and Patrick Surtain might limit Devontae Adams enough to keep them viable. I don't think they're going to give up a lot of yards in this game. So I think from a floor perspective, the Broncos are solid. But number 6, I got the Vikings versus Tampa Bay, and the Vikings have an excellent matchup. Baker Mayfield, not a quarterback you trust, although the Vikings are not a defense that you totally trust either. So I'm definitely going with some weird calls here in the beginning, but this is how I see it. This is what I'm rolling with. Let's take the Vikings as a solid streamer in week 1. But number 7, I'm going with the 49ers at Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers offense will keep things going. I don't think they're going to turn the ball over once in this game. That's where I think the Niners will be kind of capped for upside, and that's why I only have them at 7. You probably want to see them higher on this list. You could make the case for them at number 5, but at number 7 is where I'm going to settle. Number 8, I got the Seahawks versus the Rams, and if there's no Cooper Kupp, I will be moving them up. Definitely on this list, probably at number 5. But for now, I got them at number 8, and I trust them should be a bit of a blowout for the Seahawks in this division rivalry. But number 9, I'm going with the Bills, who I think will win on the road at the Jets. That offensive line for the Jets is not something I totally trust. And with a good cornerback to limit Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall not fully up to speed, I think the Bills will capitalize. They have an excellent run defense, so Dalvin Cook will be mitigated. But maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe that Jets offense is better than I give it credit for with Rodgers at the helm. But number 10, I'm going with the Jaguars at the Colts, a matchup against a rookie quarterback. What more can you ask for? In a divisional setting as well, the Jags should be hungry. But number 11, I'll go with the Cowboys at the Giants. A lot of talent on this defense, but I don't see too many turnovers, maybe 1, maximum 2 by the Giants, and I think that's going to kind of keep them somewhat mitigated for fantasy points. But at number 11, you could definitely do worse. I think the floor will be solid for the Cowboys defense. Start them if you got them. But number 12, I got the Saints defense versus Tennessee, and Derrick Henry usually starts off a little slow. The Saints secondary is definitely elite. So DeAndre Hopkins going to be limited, and I think the Saints will be solid from a fantasy perspective. At this point, I think you can project about 6, 7, maybe 8 points for these teams, but I don't expect more than double digits. But number 13, I'll take the Cardinals versus Washington. Hard to trust Sam Howell, so why not give it a shot? They're not convinced that they're tanking just yet. So the Cardinals defense probably going to play as tough as they will all season. In week 1, I got them top 15 for that reason. But number 14, I got the Patriots versus Philly, an elite offense to go against. So Patriots will be ranked higher pretty soon. But in week 1, pretty average, pretty mediocre. Number 15, though, I got the Giants versus Dallas. Their defense isn't as stacked as the Cowboys, so that's why I ranked them lower. But I do think they win the game. I don't think they give up a ton of points, maybe a few more field goals than touchdowns. And I think they also force some turnovers. I think Dak Prescott will struggle in the first half. So those are really the only defenses I'm considering my top 15 at the position. But at 16, I got the Chargers. They're very talented. You never know what can happen. At 17, I got the Falcons against Bryce Young in his debut. So also never know what can happen. Not a bad bet there. But at 18, I got the Bears against Jordan Love. Not too confident in Love, but it is a divisional game. Very kind of hard to predict, and the Bears defense, not too talented. So we'll see there, but then the Panthers at Atlanta, it's not like Desmond Ridder scares you a ton either, but I prefer the Falcons in this matchup. And then the last defense I will mention at number 20 is the Titans versus the Saints. The last defense I would even consider starting, but only in a very, very deep format. Everybody else, I'm leaving on the bench, if not the waiver wire, and I'm not interested in starting any other defense this week. So that's it for this video. These are my top 20 rankings at all 3 positions. So take a good look. Ask me those questions in the comment section if you still have any start-sit decisions that you'd like my input to make, and I will be answering those questions. I'll also get you some start-sit decisions for Thursday night and some injury updates as we approach Sunday. But looking forward to it. Very excited that football is back, and can't wait for the rest of the year here on YouTube. But my name is Adam Riancho. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time here on Nice and Blunt.